just better if I show you the difference when we're in the air rather than trying to explain it. It's going to give a different display on the radar of the same image, basically. It's the best I can say at the moment. Under here, if we can find him, is our pulse frequency. I believe that is a PRF frequency, pulse repetition frequency. So radars shoot radiation out at a certain frequency, and we can get a different return based on which pulse frequency we're sending out. So you've got normal and what have you got? Normal and short here. We can change between. So if a target was a certain type of target, may respond better on a certain PRF frequency. That's the best I've got way of explaining that at the moment. Then we've got here. Now I don't really understand this one myself. It's passive recce mode. So presumably, if you turn passive recce mode on, the radar is no longer emitting. But that doesn't make any sense to me because the radar always needs to emit, otherwise it's just not working. So if someone else would like to explain the passive recce to me, that would be appreciated. Here we've got anti-jamming. 0 is off, I believe, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 7, is it? Are different ways of burning through hostile jammers. I've never actually had to use that on the Viggen, so I don't really know how to explain it other than to just accept for the time being it's there. Here is our radar stick. This is like a joystick, and we can move it left, right, up, down, and that is for manipulating things on the radar screen. On the top here, 3-way switch, a 0, 1, and 2. Different modes to put the radar in. We'll look at that again. This knob here is our ranging knob to turn the range up and down of the radar. Now it's important to point out it's not actually changing the range of our radar. The range of our radar is always infinite. Essentially to the edge of the universe. It's just actually changing the display of our radar, the range display of our radar. Under here, I can't really get to look at it. We've got another 3-stage trigger under here known as our fix trigger. It gives us 3 modes of fix. That is for manipulating items in the radar. We'll go over that later. We've got our memory button, I believe that is. We'll look at that later. And somewhere, I'm not exactly sure where it is on here, we've also got a radar elevation switch. To explain that, I usually explain it by saying that our radar scan area is roughly in the shape of a slice of cake. We are at the pointy end of the slice of cake, and it heads out in that direction and in that direction to form our slice of cake. Our slice of cake can be aimed up, and it can be aimed down in all aircraft, and our elevation switch changes that if we want to scan up or scan down, so we may look at that later. So if you were flying relatively high and your target that you wanted to look at was relatively low, you would change the elevation down and vice versa. That's a good point to explain that this is essentially a ground radar. Now it does search, you can use it in air-to-air for locking up hostile aircraft as well. I've shown that in a separate video about in the air-to-air mode of the Viggen, air-to-air missile fighting, so we're not going to go through that. We're just going to look at the air-to-ground usage of it today, scanning for ground targets. Right, so we've gone over the various buttons and switches. Now, always useful. Now, there's no way you can actually go and press those things in the cockpit, actually use your mouse to press on them. You'd never get anywhere. So we're going to look at the different commands. So to move our radar stick, we've got radar stick up, down, left, and right. We've got radar elevation up and radar elevation down. You can bind them here to the keyboard or the HOTAS as you see fit. We've got the radar range increase and the radar range decrease. We've got the radar modes, A0, which is basically off, A1 and A2. We'll go through them shortly. And we've got our TV fix switches. We've got T0 switch, TV switch, and T1 switch. Okay, maybe I'll explain at this point actually. The T switches are used for doing things with the radar, so you're not just looking, you're manipulating points, you're essentially doing things for weaponry, for weapon employment. Now those I cover in the various tutorials, like the RBO for anti-ship missile, the RB15 anti-ship weapon employment, things with the radar, so you're not point actually. And T1. We've got the radar modes, A0, which is basically as you see fit. We've got you can actually go and press those things in the cockpit. Always useful. Now, there's no way you can actually go and press those things in the cockpit. Actually, use your mouse to press on them. You'd never get anywhere. So we're going to look at the different commands. So to move our radar stick, we've got radar stick up, down, left, and right. We've got radar elevation up and radar elevation down. You can bind them here to the keyboard or the HOTAS as you see fit. We've got the radar range increase and the radar range decrease. We've got the radar modes, A0, which is basically off, A1 and A2. We'll go through them shortly. And we've got our TV fix switches. We've got T0 switch, TV switch, and T1 switch. Okay, maybe I'll explain at this point actually. The T switches are used for doing things with the radar, so you're not just looking, you're manipulating points, you're essentially doing things for weaponry, for weapon employment. Now those I cover in the various tutorials, like the RB-04 anti-ship missile, the RB-15 anti-ship missile, the R-75 missile. So we're not going to go through them now, because what we're doing is just looking at the searchability of the radar at the moment, but just accept for the time being that they are there. Okay, so back we go. We're in nav mode. The radar has warmed up. Next, we're going to look at the master modes. So A0 is basically off, so nothing's been displayed. Then we've got A1. That is our base mode for turning the radar on. We've turned it on, and we've got a display. So let's have a look at what we've got. So this is essentially our slice of cake that I was describing earlier. The thing that's slewing left and right, that is our actual radar scan beam. So the radar scan beam is a very thin beam that moves left and right, and it only highlights or sees an object once it's over the top or scanning that object. The time where it's not on top of that object, it's basically kept in memory and displayed on the scope. Now this is, if you like, a kind of actual representation of what's ahead of us. As you can see, that is our slice of cake to the left and right, and the distance is shown here, the range that's shown here, and we can change that range as with the buttons shown earlier to 15 kilometers, 30 kilometers, 60 kilometers, or 120 kilometers. So if something was out here at the top, that would be 120 kilometers. If we were down in 15 kilometers and something was at the top here, that would be 15 kilometers. Okay, it's scanning left to right with a total arc, I believe, of 120 or just over 120 degrees. As well as that, we've got this line here, this horizontal line, which is essentially our artificial horizon. If we were to roll our plane left, it would roll left, so that we can basically fly the plane while looking down at the radar scan. Next is our A2 mode. A2. Tough one to explain this. This is called B-scope mode. Pretty much all planes with a radar have a B-scope mode. So you have the previous mode, which was like a realistic representation. This is a B-scope mode, and it's stretched our slice of cake into a square, or known as a B-scope. If you've flown simpler planes like the F-15, its base mode is the B-scope. And where it stretches it into a square, as it's not a proper representation of what the plane's seeing, I like to say off B-scope. But it's there in case you want it. That's all I've got to say for that for the moment. Regards elevation, most planes have a radar antenna elevation symbology somewhere. This doesn't appear to have it. If I'm wrong, then let me know, please. But I can't seem to tell if my radar is aiming up or down. It would be nice to know if there was some symbology for that somewhere. Okay, with that, the next thing to do is get airborne. So we're on the ground at the moment. There's basically nothing to scan. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be imagining our slice of cake in front of us, and we're going to be, once we're in the air,
Hello everyone, Badger here, and today we're going to take a look at some more Viggen in DCS. This time we're going to take a look at some of the uses for the ground radar. And I want to start this off by saying that the credit goes to my wingman Mice in Tor, that told me that you can detect ground targets very easily by setting the radar in linear mode and then fine-tuning the gain of the radar. This is what it looks like with neutral, and this is what it looks like with full. So you just tune this. So, but I found out as a happy full. This is what it looks like with neutral of the radar. The gain of the radar. This is what it looks like with neutral, and this is what it looks like with full. So you just tune this. So, but I found out as a happy accident when I was looking for a couple of my wingmen. I was in a different airbase and I was going to join up with them. And from a long distance, I was able to see them. So up ahead we have 3 AGS-37 Viggens and 3 Abrams tanks. Now we're going to see if we can detect them. So we're going to fly low like you do in the Viggen. Radar to maximum range. Slow down a little bit. And then we're gonna start looking for targets. So let's say that there are my 3 wingmen and I'm gonna join up with them for a flight and an attack to the south. Now I could look for them visually and just keep scanning and they could tell me where they are flying over the river. But I found that this works very well, extremely well even I would say. Just gonna check so we're flying straight. And I think we found them. Right there. Turn right. Yep, it's a bit hard to see, so we're gonna move the nav system. We don't need that. But yeah, you can also see the ground targets now, so you can clearly make out there's something. It's moving fast, because you can see a river here. And it's the same river that's going there, and there's the lake that you can see here. So yeah, you can see it's definitely moving quickly. You can see the 3 tanks right there, and here's the row of 3 Viggens. So we are now about 25 kilometers out, I would say. And you can definitely tell they're moving, because the dots are moving towards us, because we are moving closer, but the 3 dots are moving from left to right. Still don't have any visual on that. So we know roughly where they are, so now we just need to locate them. Setting the radar to... And now you can really see that there's a formation of ships. Aircraft. In front of me. Because now we know that, okay, those are aircraft. We saw them moving. Well, now we just need to track them down. So I'm gonna start scanning for a visual. I'm not sure what altitude... Oh, there they are. Look. Right there. And there they are on the radar. So you know when they're that close in 15 kilometer mode, you should be within visual range. If they give you your altitude. Well, anyways, I hope you learned something, because this is something that I thought was very interesting. And until next time, Bad Joe out.
Hello everyone, because you're all busy surfing urethral sounding videos, I've created 1 Minute DCS. This time I'm covering radar and the Viggen. BER is warm-up. Urethral sounding videos, I've created 1 Minute DCS. This time I'm covering radar and the Viggen. BER is warm-up mode. When the radar is fully warmed up, switch to nav. This is the self-explanatory land-sea switch. This switch is the radar between linear and logarithmic modes. This is the pulse switch. This is the passive mode switch. This is the anti-jamming filter knob, giggity. This is your terrain avoidance selector. This is your radar mode selector. This is your memory button. This is your range switch. This is your 3-position fixed trigger, and at the bottom of the stick you'll find the antenna elevation dial. Switch the mode to A1 for wide search mode. The radar has a 122-degree scan arc. It's divided across the center by the artificial horizon. On the bottom right, the current range is displayed with distances ranging from 120 to 15 kilometers. This is how a ship looks at 60 kilometers. A waypoint is represented by a circle. Switch to A2 for a zoomed-in forward-facing B-scope. When surrounded by high mountains, switch to terrain avoidance mode. Remember to fly through the darker lower areas. In later episodes I'll cover radar applications for weapons delivery. For now, please bear in mind that the radar can be a lot like urethral sounding, in the sense that all it takes is one sadist to force something unfeasibly large up your pipe. On that leg-crossing thought, I thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to dislike or tell me to go fuck myself below.
Here, and today we're going to take a look at some more Viggen in DCS. This time we're going to take a look at some of the uses for the ground radar.
There are a lot of jets to choose from on DCS, and it's still growing. After playing Arma 3 for God knows how many years, I ended up finding DCS, because I always found myself flying around and I've always been a fan of planes. So I jumped on DCS, and for me, I started with the F-16, and kinda lost track of what jet I ended up buying next, not knowing that DCS offers a free trial period for 14 days to try out these planes. So yeah, if you're someone like me, you spent a lot of money. Anyway, once I bought the F-16, I kind of got bored real fast, only because most, if not all, the PvP servers are just BVR, beyond visual range. Basically, you can only see your target on the radar, you can't actually see it to the naked eye, you lock on your radar, you fire the missile, and you fly away, and hope it actually hits. That's it. And you're doing this non-stop. So obviously, I wanted to find something that had more close quarter action. I wanted to be able to see the target in front of me. And that's when I found Enigma's Cold War server. By the way, definitely want to check this one out. This server is doing very well. It's growing in popularity like nobody's business. Definitely check it out, especially if you want to try more of those old style jets. And that's the next step for me. Once I found the server, I just needed to find the right jet. And once again, I was paying way too much for a short period of time, but I think I finally found the right jet for me. The AJS-37 Viggen, a Swedish jet that was introduced in 1971. This jet has it all on DCS, whether it's air-to-ground, air-to-air, even recon on Enigma's Cold War server, where you go out just with chaff, flares, jammer, and your imaginary camera to take photos and reveal enemy targets. In this video, I'm showing my favorite loadout for the all-in-one fighter jet role. To start off, I always make sure I have air-to-air missiles on me for the obvious reasons. Then I put 1 to 2 gun pods for close quarter combat, and maybe replace one of those gun pods with chaff and flare for countermeasures. But the biggest thing that's big about this all-in-one loadout is the RB-75. Technically an air-to-ground missile. It basically looks for a certain contrast, a dark target, and locks onto it. The best part about this missile is it's not affected by chaff or flare. So without further ado, enjoy.
Rearming complete.
Huh, guys got the same loadout I'm running. Oh, hi there. Yeah, I'm just gonna pause this for a second. I forgot to mention that the first flight I did, I actually had bombs on me and 2 sidewinders, pretty much like the loadout you see my buddy next to me right here has. The reason being is I just wanted to test out the air-to-ground bombs. Did not work out so well, but this section does have some air-to-air combat with some helicopters that I've ran into. Okay, that's it. Bye. I think that's him right in front of me right here. Yeah, that's definitely